Chapter 1. Chapter 1. The Sneaker Outlet. The fluorescent lights flickered above, casting a bright sheen on the rows of sneakers that lined the walls of the outlet store. Paige had never felt more alive than she did in this moment, surrounded by her friends and the intoxicating scent of fresh rubber and new fabric. Just a few days ago, she had been wrestling with her feelings for Brad, the boy with the easy smile and the kind eyes. But here, in the sneaker outlet, the chaos of her emotions faded into the background, replaced by the thrill of the hunt for the perfect pair of kicks. "Look at these!" Caitlin exclaimed, holding up a pair of neon green high tops that seemed to glow even in the harsh lighting. "They're like something out of a sci-fi movie." "More like something out of a clown's closet," Brad teased, leaning against a nearby display with his arms crossed, a playful smirk dancing on his lips. "You'd need a neon sign just to pull those off." Paige chuckled, her eyes darting between Caitlin's enthusiastic expression and Brad's teasing demeanor. The banter was familiar, a comforting rhythm that underscored their friendship. But beneath the surface, tension simmered, a current that Paige could feel but couldn't quite name. She glanced at Brad, his dark hair tousled and his blue eyes sparkling with mischief, and her heart raced. "Hey, don't knock them until you try them on," Ashley chimed in, her voice light and teasing. "You might just be the next trendsetter, Brad." "Yeah, right," he scoffed, but the hint of a blush crept up his neck, and Paige couldn't help but smile. Mary Kate, who had been quietly observing the exchange, finally spoke up. "I think we should all try on something outrageous. It's a sneaker outlet, after all. Let's make a day of it." The group erupted into laughter, and Paige felt a warmth spread through her chest. This was what she loved. Being surrounded by her friends, the camaraderie that made even the most mundane moments feel special. As they wandered deeper into the store, the atmosphere shifted. The vibrant colors of the sneakers seemed to dim, and a low rumble of thunder echoed outside, sending a shiver down Paige's spine. She glanced toward the large glass windows, where dark clouds gathered ominously, casting shadows over the displays. "Looks like a storm is coming," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Perfect timing for a shopping spree," Caitlin replied, her enthusiasm unwavering. "What's a little rain when you have new shoes?" Paige nodded, but a knot of unease twisted in her stomach. The storm felt more than just a change in weather. It felt like a harbinger of something. She shook her head, trying to dismiss the thought. "Let's find some shoes that will blow our minds," Brad exclaimed, breaking the tension. He grabbed Paige's wrist, pulling her toward a wall of sneakers that seemed to shimmer with promise. "What do you think of these?" He held up a pair of sleek black runners with electric blue accents. Paige's breath caught in her throat. They were stunning, but it wasn't just the shoes that captivated her. It was the way Brad's fingers brushed against her skin, sending a jolt of electricity through her. "They're amazing," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just like you," he said, his gaze locking onto hers, and for a moment, the world around them faded. The laughter of their friends, the rumble of thunder, the smell of fresh rubber. All of it disappeared, leaving just the two of them suspended in time. But before she could respond, Caitlin's voice broke the spell. "Hey, you two lovebirds. Save the flirting for later. We need to find something for the group photo." Paige's cheeks flushed, and she quickly turned her attention to the wall of sneakers, trying to mask her embarrassment. "Right. Let's find something outrageous." As they continued to browse, the storm outside intensified. Rain began to pelt against the windows, and the wind howled, creating an eerie backdrop to their cheerful chatter. The store, once filled with laughter, now felt charged with an undercurrent of tension, as if the storm had seeped into their little bubble of joy. "Okay, I'm trying these on," Ashley declared, pulling a pair of bright red sneakers with exaggerated soles from the shelf. "They're ridiculous, but I love them." "Go for it," Caitlin encouraged, clapping her hands together. "We need some drama in this photo." Paige watched as Ashley disappeared into the fitting room, her heart racing. She felt a strange mix of excitement and dread. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil brewing within her. She wanted to tell Brad how she felt, but the words were stuck in her throat, tangled with fear and uncertainty. "Paige, what about you?" Brad asked, breaking her reverie. "You haven't tried anything on yet." "I'm just looking," she replied, her voice shaky. "I'm not sure what I want." "Let's find something that screams, Paige," he said, a playful grin on his face. "How about these?" He held up a pair of vibrant purple sneakers, adorned with glittering accents. "They're bold," she said, biting her lip. "Exactly. You're bold, right?" He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. "You just need to embrace it." Paige felt her heart race again, the warmth of his presence enveloping her. "Maybe I'll try them on," she said, her voice steadier now. As she headed toward the fitting room, she could feel Brad's gaze on her, a weight that both thrilled and terrified her. She slipped into the purple sneakers, the fabric hugging her feet like a second skin. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, the shoes a stark contrast to her usual style. "Wow, those are something else," Caitlin exclaimed, stepping into the fitting room area with Ashley, who was now sporting the red sneakers. "You look fierce, Paige." "Fierce?" Paige echoed, a smile breaking through her nerves. "Absolutely. Now let's get a group shot," Caitlin insisted, pulling out her phone. As they gathered for the photo, the storm outside raged on, the wind howling like a wild beast. The atmosphere in the store felt charged, electric, as if the storm was a metaphor for the emotions swirling within each of them. "Say, sneakers," Caitlin called out, and they all grinned, striking exaggerated poses. But just as the camera clicked, the lights flickered again, plunging the store into darkness for a heartbeat before the emergency lights kicked in, casting a dim glow over the chaos. "What the?" Brad started, but his voice was drowned out by the sound of thunder crashing like a drumroll. "Is everyone okay?" Mary-Kate asked, her voice laced with concern. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. The storm approaches. The vibrant sneaker outlet buzzed with energy, a kaleidoscope of colors and laughter that filled the air with a sense of camaraderie. Paige, a self-proclaimed sneakerhead, had been in her element, surrounded by her friends Caitlin, Brad, Ashley, and Mary-Kate. They had spent the afternoon sifting through the latest styles, the smell of fresh rubber mingling with the sweet scent of cotton candy from a nearby food stall. But as the sun dipped lower in the sky, dark clouds began to gather, casting a shadow over their carefree shopping spree. Now, as Paige stood in front of a display of neon high tops, the first drops of rain began to patter against the large glass windows, creating a rhythmic backdrop that was both soothing and foreboding. She glanced outside, watching the raindrops race each other down the glass, and felt a twinge of unease. The storm was coming, and with it, a sense of impending chaos. I can't see anything with this rain," Paige muttered, squinting at the blurred shapes outside. The flickering lights overhead added to her frustration, casting erratic shadows across the store. "It's like the universe is conspiring against my sneaker dreams." Caitlin, who was flipping through a magazine on a nearby bench, looked up, her brow furrowed. "It's just a little rain, Paige. We'll be fine. Besides, you've got your heart set on those pink ones, right?" She gestured toward a pair of vibrant sneakers that seemed to glow even in the dim light. "Yeah, but I can't focus with all this noise," Paige replied, her voice tinged with irritation. The thunder rumbled ominously outside, A deep growl that seemed to echo her frustration. And the lights keep flickering. It's like a horror movie in here. Brad, leaning against a nearby display, chuckled. You're being dramatic. It's just a storm. We've got plenty of time before it gets really bad. He shot her a teasing grin, but there was a hint of concern in his eyes. Besides, if it gets too crazy, we can always wait it out here. Yeah, right, Ashley chimed in, her voice light but her expression serious. You know how storms can be. One minute it is just rain, and the next, it is a full-blown hurricane. Mary-Kate, who had been quietly examining a pair of sneakers, looked up, her eyes wide. Do you think it'll really get that bad? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The tension in the air was palpable, and Paige could feel her heart racing, not just from the storm but from the unspoken words hanging between them. Let's not freak out just yet, Caitlin said, trying to lighten the mood. We're here to have fun, remember. Let's pick out our sneakers and then figure out what to do about the rain. Paige forced a smile, but her mind was racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The flickering lights, the distant rumble of thunder. It all felt like a warning. She turned back to the display, her fingers brushing against the cool fabric of the sneakers, but her thoughts were elsewhere. What if they were stuck here? What if the storm turned into something worse? Hey, do you think we should check the weather? She asked, glancing at Brad, who was still leaning casually against the display. Just to be safe. Sure, I can look it up, he replied, pulling out his phone. The screen lit up his face, casting a blue glow that contrasted sharply with the dimness of the store. Let's see what the forecast says. As he tapped away, the thunder rumbled again, louder this time, and the lights flickered more violently. Paige felt a shiver run down her spine. This is getting creepy, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Relax, it is just a storm, Brad said, but there was an edge to his tone that suggested he wasn't as unconcerned as he pretended to be. He glanced up from his phone, his expression serious. Okay, so it looks like it is going to get worse. Heavy rain and strong winds are expected. We might want to think about leaving soon. Great, Paige muttered, her heart sinking. Just when I thought today couldn't get any more chaotic. Let's just grab what we want and then head out, Caitlin suggested, her voice steady. We can make a run for it before it really hits. Paige nodded, but her mind was racing. She felt a strange mix of excitement and dread, as if the storm outside mirrored the turmoil brewing within her. She turned back to the sneakers, trying to focus on the vibrant colors, but her thoughts kept drifting. What if they got caught in the rain? What if they were stranded here, trapped in the store with the storm raging outside? Paige, you okay? Ashley's voice broke through her thoughts, and she looked up to see her friend studying her with concern. Yeah, I'm fine, Paige replied, forcing a smile. Just thinking about the weather. More like overthinking, Brad teased, but there was a softness in his eyes that made her heart flutter. You're always the one who worries too much. Maybe I wouldn't have to worry if you guys would just take this seriously, she shot back, her frustration bubbling to the surface. I mean, what if something happens? What if we can't get home? Then we'll figure it out, Caitlin said, her tone firm. We always do. We're a team, right? Right, Paige agreed, but the words felt hollow. The storm outside was intensifying, and she could feel the tension in the air, thick and electric. She glanced at the windows, watching as the rain began to pour, a curtain of water that obscured the view outside. The world beyond was fading, and with it, her sense of security. Okay, let's make a decision, Brad said, his voice cutting through the rising panic. Do we stay and wait it out, or do we make a run for it? Paige's heart raced as she weighed her options. She could feel the storm closing in, a palpable force that seemed to press against the walls of the store. "I think we should go," she said finally, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "We can't just sit here and wait for it to get worse." "Agreed," Caitlin said, her eyes bright with determination. "Let's grab our sneakers and get out of here." As they moved toward the checkout, the lights flickered again, and the thunder cracked overhead, shaking the very foundation of the store. Paige's heart raced as she glanced back at the windows, the rain now a torrential downpour. The world outside was a blur of gray, and she felt a sense of urgency wash over her. Come on, come on. Chapter 3. Chapter 3. Darkness Falls. The vibrant sneaker outlet had been a sanctuary of color and laughter, a place where Paige and her friends could momentarily escape the pressures of their lives. They had reveled in the latest styles, the smell of fresh rubber mingling with the sweet scent of new beginnings. But as the storm clouds gathered outside, the atmosphere shifted, darkening not just the sky but the mood within the store. Thunder rumbled ominously, and the flickering lights had been a prelude to the chaos that was about to unfold. Now, as the first crack of thunder split the air like a gunshot, the lights went out, plunging the store into a suffocating darkness. The sudden silence was deafening, broken only by the distant sound of rain hammering against the glass. Paige felt her heart race, the thrill of the unexpected mingling with a creeping sense of dread. "Guys," she called out, her voice trembling slightly as she reached out into the void, her fingers brushing against the cool metal of a display rack. "Can anyone hear me? Paige." Caitlin's voice was a whisper, barely audible over the pounding rain. "Where are you?" "Right here," Paige replied, her pulse quickening. She could hear the shuffling of feet, the soft gasps of her friends as they tried to navigate the darkness. The air felt thick, charged with an energy that made her skin prickle. "Stay close," Brad shouted, his voice booming in the dark. "We need to find each other." Paige took a step forward, her foot catching on something. A discarded shoebox, perhaps. She stumbled, her breath hitching as she fought to regain her balance. "This is ridiculous," she exclaimed, frustration bubbling to the surface. "How can we even see anything in here?" Just as she finished her sentence, a piercing scream shattered the silence, echoing through the store like a siren. It was Ashley. "Ashley!" Caitlin cried, panic lacing her voice. "What happened?" I don't know." Ashley's voice quivered, and Paige could hear her scrambling, the sound of her shoes scuffing against the floor. "I just felt something brush against me." "Calm down," Brad urged, his tone firm but laced with concern. "It's just the dark. We're all here. Just breathe." Paige's heart raced as she strained to hear the sounds around her. The rain continued to pound against the windows, a relentless drumbeat that matched the chaos in her mind. She could feel the weight of the darkness pressing in, suffocating and oppressive. "Let's stick together," Mary Kate suggested, her voice steady despite the fear that underlined her words. "We can't just wander around." "Right," Paige agreed, her voice steadier now. "Let's form a chain. I'll hold on to Caitlin, and you guys can hold on to each other." They shuffled closer, the warmth of their bodies a small comfort in the enveloping darkness. Paige reached out, her fingers finding Caitlin's arm, and she squeezed it reassuringly. "We'll be okay," she whispered, though she wasn't sure she believed it. As they formed a line, the darkness felt alive, swirling around them like a living entity. The air was thick with tension, and Paige could feel her friend's anxiety radiating off them. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "Let's just wait it out. The power will come back on soon." But as the minutes ticked by, the darkness seemed to stretch on endlessly. The rain continued to hammer against the windows, and the occasional rumble of thunder felt like a warning, a reminder of the storm raging outside. "Do you think we should try to find the exit?" Brad asked, his voice low. "Are you crazy?" Caitlin shot back. "What if we get lost? We can't even see our hands in front of our faces." "Maybe we should just sit down," Ashley suggested, her voice trembling. "I don't like this." Paige felt a surge of protectiveness for her friends. "No one is sitting down in the dark," she said firmly. "We need to stay alert. If we panic, we'll make things worse." "Paige, you're not helping," Caitlin snapped, her frustration bubbling over. "This is terrifying." "I know it is." Paige shot back, her own fear spilling into her voice. "But we can't let it control us. We need to stay together and keep talking." The group fell into a tense silence, the only sounds the rain and the occasional rumble of thunder. Paige could feel the weight of her friend's fear pressing down on her, and she fought to keep her own anxiety at bay. "Remember that time we got lost in the mall?" Mary-Kate said suddenly, her voice a lifeline in the darkness. "We thought we'd never find our way out." "Yeah, and we ended up in that weird store with all the novelty socks," Brad chuckled, the sound easing some of the tension. "I thought we were going to have to live there. Or that time we tried to sneak into the movie theater and ended up in the wrong screening," Caitlin added, her voice lightening. "I still can't believe we watched that awful rom-com instead of the action movie." As they shared stories, the darkness felt a little less suffocating, the weight of their fear lifting ever so slightly. Paige could feel the warmth of camaraderie surrounding them, a reminder that they were not alone in this chaos. But just as the tension began to ease, another loud crack of thunder echoed through the store, shaking the very foundations. The lights flickered back to life, illuminating the chaos around them. "Thank God!" Ashley exclaimed, relief flooding her voice. But as the lights flickered back on, Paige's heart sank. The store was in disarray. Sneakers scattered across the floor, displays toppled over, and the once vibrant atmosphere now felt eerily chaotic. "Is everyone okay?" Paige asked, scanning the group. "I think so," Caitlin replied, her eyes wide. "But what just happened?" "I don't know," Paige admitted, her heart racing. "But we need to get out of here." As they made their way toward the exit, the atmosphere shifted again. The storm outside had intensified, the wind howling like a banshee. The rain lashed against the windows, and the sound was almost deafening. "Do you think we'll be able to get home?" Mary-Kate asked, her voice small. "Of course we will," Brad said, trying to sound confident. "We just need to stick together." But as they reached the front of the store, the sight that greeted them sent a chill down Paige's spine. The glass doors were rattling violently, the wind howling like a creature in pain. "Maybe we should wait a bit," Caitlin suggested, her voice trembling. "No way," Paige said, determination flooding her veins. "We can't just stand here." Chapter 4. Chapter 4. The first scream. The vibrant sneaker outlet had transformed from a haven of color and laughter into a shadowy labyrinth of uncertainty. Paige had been lost in the thrill of the hunt, her heart racing with the promise of fresh kicks, when the storm rolled in, darkening the skies and dimming the lights. The laughter of her friends, Caitlin, Brad, Ashley, and Mary-Kate, had faded into an uneasy silence, punctuated only by the ominous rumble of thunder. As the power flickered and finally succumbed to the storm, Paige's frustration had boiled over into an involuntary scream, a cry that echoed in the darkness, only to be swallowed by the chaos that followed. Now, in the pitch-black store, the air was thick with tension, and the scent of damp rubber mingled with the faint whiff of fear. Paige could feel her heart pounding in her chest, each beat a reminder of the uncertainty that loomed around them. "What was that?" Ashley's voice trembled, breaking the stillness that had settled like a heavy blanket over the group. Paige, still reeling from her own outburst, felt a flush of embarrassment creep up her cheeks. "It was me," she admitted sheepishly, her voice barely above a whisper. I couldn't see the sneakers." "Seriously?" Caitlin's tone was incredulous, but there was a hint of relief in her voice, as if the admission had lightened the mood, if only slightly. But before anyone could respond, another scream pierced the darkness, sharp and chilling. It was a sound that seemed to reverberate off the walls, sending a shiver down Paige's spine. "Who was that?" Brad's voice cut through the tension, a mixture of confusion and fear lacing his words. "I don't know." Ashley's voice was rising, panic creeping in. "What if someone's hurt? Or worse?" The thought hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Paige could feel her pulse quicken, the adrenaline surging through her veins. "We should stick together," she suggested, trying to sound braver than she felt. "Let's find a flashlight or something." "Great idea," Caitlin said, her voice steadier now, though Paige could hear the tremor beneath it. "But where do we even start?" "Over there," Brad pointed, his hand slicing through the darkness toward the direction of the cash register. "I think I saw a light there earlier." As they moved cautiously, the sound of their footsteps echoed in the silence, each step a reminder of their vulnerability. The store felt larger in the dark, the aisles stretching out like ominous shadows. Paige could feel the weight of her friend's fear pressing down on her, and she fought to keep her own panic at bay. "Do you think it was just someone playing a prank?" Mary-Kate asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Who would prank us in a place like this?" Brad shot back, his tone sharper than intended. "This isn't funny." Paige felt a surge of irritation at Brad's defensiveness, but she kept it to herself. They were all on edge, and she didn't want to add fuel to the fire. Instead, she focused on the task at hand, her mind racing with possibilities. As they reached the cash register, Paige fumbled in the dark, her fingers brushing against the cool, smooth surface of the counter. "There has to be something here," she murmured, her heart racing as she searched for a flashlight or any source of light. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught her eye, and she turned sharply, her breath hitching in her throat. "Did you see that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "What?" Caitlin asked, her eyes wide in the darkness. "I thought I saw someone," Paige replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Stop it, Paige," Brad said, his voice low and firm. "You're just imagining things." But before she could respond, another scream echoed through the store, this one more desperate, more haunting than the last. It was a sound that clawed at the edges of their sanity, a raw expression of terror that sent chills racing down Paige's spine. "Okay, that's it," Ashley exclaimed, her voice rising in pitch. "I'm freaking out. What if we're trapped here?" "Trapped," Caitlin echoed, her voice trembling. "We can't be trapped. There's gotta be a way out." "Let's just find the exit," Brad said, his voice steadying as he took charge. "We'll stick together. No one gets left behind." Paige nodded, grateful for his leadership, even as her heart raced with fear. They turned away from the register and began to navigate the aisles, the darkness swallowing them whole. The sound of their footsteps echoed ominously, and Paige could feel the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. "Do you think it is safe to go outside?" Mary-Kate asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Safe? No," Brad replied, his tone serious. "But we can't stay here. We need to find help." As they moved deeper into the store, the atmosphere grew heavier, the air thick with tension and fear. Paige could feel her heart pounding in her chest, each beat a reminder of the danger that lurked in the shadows. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the store, followed by a series of frantic footsteps. Paige's heart raced as she turned to her friends, their faces pale in the darkness. What was that? Caitlin gasped, her eyes wide with fear. I don't know, Paige admitted, her voice trembling. But we need to get out of here. Let's go, Brad urged, grabbing Paige's hand and pulling her toward the exit. As they stumbled through the aisles, Paige's mind raced with possibilities. What if someone was hurt? What if they were in danger? The thought sent a wave of panic crashing over her, and she struggled to keep her breathing steady. Stay close, Brad called out, his voice firm as they reached the front of the store. But as they approached the exit, Paige's heart sank. The door was locked tight, the glass panels reflecting their terrified faces back at them. No, 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 Ashley cried, pounding her fists against the door. Let us out. Calm down, Brad shouted, his voice rising above the chaos. We'll find another way. Paige felt a surge of frustration as she turned to her friends, their faces etched with fear. We can't just stand here. We need to think. Think. Caitlin echoed, her voice trembling. What do you suggest we do? We're trapped. Maybe there's a back door, Mary Kate suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. Let's check, Paige said, her determination rising. We can't give up. Chapter 5. Chapter 5. The growing fear. The storm had descended upon the sneaker outlet like a dark shroud, the once vibrant atmosphere now thick with tension. Paige and her friends had been lost in the excitement of the latest sneaker releases, their laughter echoing off the walls, until the first drops of rain began to patter against the windows. The flickering lights and ominous rumbles of thunder had turned their playful outing into a scene of uncertainty. Just moments ago, Paige had been frustrated by the dimming light, her voice rising above the chaos, only to be interrupted by a scream that had sent a chill through the group. Now, in the oppressive darkness, the air was heavy with fear, and the laughter that had once filled the store was replaced by an unsettling silence, punctuated only by the distant rumble of thunder and the occasional scream that echoed through the aisles. Okay, everyone, let's just take a deep breath, Brad said, his voice attempting to cut through the tension like a knife. He was always the jokester, the one who could lighten the mood with a well-timed quip. If Ashley's house burns down, she can just crash at Caitlin's. I hear they have a spare room. A nervous chuckle escaped from Caitlin, but it quickly faded as another scream pierced the air. This time, it was Caitlin herself, her voice trembling as she clutched her phone, the dim glow of its screen barely illuminating her wide eyes. What if it really is on fire? What if we can't get home? Caitlin, it is just a house, Brad said, trying to soothe her. We'll figure it out. We're all here together, right? He reached out, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder, but the gesture felt hollow against the backdrop of their growing fear. Paige felt the weight of the darkness pressing in on them, the shadows stretching and shifting as if they were alive. She could hear the rapid beating of her heart, each thump echoing in her ears. Maybe we should just stay put until the power comes back, she suggested, her voice steadier than she felt. It's safer here. Safer. Ashley's voice trembled, her anxiety palpable. What if someone's hurt? What if we're trapped in here? Trapped. Brad echoed, his tone shifting from lighthearted to serious. We're not trapped. It's just a power outage. We can find our way out. But as another scream echoed through the store, this one more desperate than the last, the group fell silent, the gravity of their situation settling heavily upon them. Who's screaming? Mary Kate whispered, her voice barely above a breath. It's not just us, is it? Paige felt a shiver run down her spine. I don't know, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But we need to stay together. Let's move toward the front, Brad suggested, his voice firm despite the uncertainty. We can find the exit. We just need to stick close. As they began to shuffle forward, the darkness seemed to close in around them, the aisles of sneakers transforming into looming shadows. Paige reached out, her fingers brushing against the cool, smooth surface of a sneaker display, grounding herself in the familiar. The smell of rubber and fabric, once comforting, now felt suffocating, a reminder of their isolation. "Wait," Caitlin said, her voice quivering. "What if we run into someone? What if they're hurt or worse?" "Caitlin, we can't just stand here," Brad urged, his tone a mix of frustration and concern. "We need to keep moving." Paige felt a surge of protectiveness for Caitlin. "It's okay to be scared," she said softly, her heart aching for her friend. "But we can't let fear paralyze us. We have to be brave." "Brave?" Caitlin scoffed, her voice laced with sarcasm. "I don't think bravery is what I'm feeling right now." "None of us are feeling brave," Ashley chimed in, her voice cracking. "We're all scared. But we can't let that stop us." "Right," Brad said, his voice steadying. "Let's just keep moving. We'll find the exit together." As they moved cautiously through the aisles, the sound of their footsteps echoed eerily in the silence. Paige's heart raced, each step feeling heavier than the last. She could feel the tension in the air, a palpable energy that crackled like electricity. The darkness felt alive, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. Suddenly, another scream shattered the silence, this one closer, more frantic. It sent a jolt of adrenaline through Paige, and she instinctively grabbed Caitlin's hand, squeezing it tightly. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Yeah," Caitlin replied, her eyes wide with fear. "What was that?" "I don't know," Paige admitted, her heart pounding in her chest. "But we need to keep moving." They pressed on, the fear coiling tighter around them with each step. The flickering of the emergency exit sign in the distance became their beacon of hope, a promise of safety just beyond the darkness. But as they approached, the sound of shuffling feet echoed from the shadows, and they froze, hearts racing. "Who's there?" Brad called out, his voice steady but laced with tension. Silence answered him, thick and suffocating. "Maybe it is just someone else who's lost," Ashley suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. "Or maybe it is something worse," Mary-Kate added, her eyes darting nervously around the darkened store. "Let's not jump to conclusions," Brad said, trying to keep the group calm. "We'll just..." Before he could finish, a figure emerged from the shadows, stumbling into the dim light of the emergency exit sign. It was a store employee, disheveled and wide-eyed, clutching a flashlight that flickered erratically. "You guys," she gasped, her voice trembling. "I thought I was the only one left." "What happened?" Paige asked, her heart racing. "Is everyone okay?" The employee shook her head, her breath coming in quick gasps. "I don't know. The power went out, and then I heard screams. I thought it was just the customers panicking, but it is not just that." "What do you mean?" Caitlin asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's something in the store," the employee said, her eyes darting nervously toward the shadows. "I heard it moving. I thought it was just my imagination, but then I heard the screams." Panic surged through the group, and Paige felt her stomach drop. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice trembling. "We need to get out of here," Brad said, his voice firm. Now. Chapter 6. Chapter 6. Confessions in the Dark. The storm had descended upon the sneaker outlet like a vengeful spirit, its dark clouds swirling ominously above. Just moments ago, Paige and her friends had been lost in the vibrant chaos of colorful sneakers and laughter, but now, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. The flickering lights had given way to darkness, and the air was thick with tension and uncertainty. Paige's frustrated scream had echoed through the store, a cry born not just from the chaos of the moment but from a deeper sense of isolation. As thunder rumbled overhead, the group found themselves grappling with more than just the fear of the storm outside. "Okay, everyone, let's just breathe," Caitlin's voice trembled slightly, cutting through the darkness. "We need to figure out what to do." "Easier said than done," Brad replied, his voice strained. "It's pitch black in here." "Maybe we should just sit tight until the power comes back," Ashley suggested, her voice quaking with anxiety. "I mean, it can't be long, right?" "Right," Mary-Kate chimed in, though her tone lacked conviction. "But what if it doesn't come back? What if we're stuck here forever?" "Stop it," Paige snapped, her frustration bubbling over. "We're not going to be stuck here forever. We just need to." "Just need to what?" Brad interrupted, his voice rising. "We can't even see each other. We don't know if there's a way out." The cacophony of fear and confusion swirled around them, each voice adding to the chaos. In the darkness, Paige felt a surge of helplessness. She wanted to be the one to calm everyone down, to take charge, but the weight of the situation pressed down on her like a heavy fog. "Mary-Kate, you screamed first," Caitlin said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What was that about?" I just wanted to fit in," Mary-Kate confessed, her words spilling out in a rush. "I thought if I screamed, it would be funny, like in those horror movies. But then I realized it wasn't funny at all. I just wanted to be part of the group, you know." The admission hung in the air, heavy and raw. Paige felt a pang of empathy for Mary-Kate. She had always been the quiet one, the one who blended into the background, and in this moment of vulnerability, Paige recognized the struggle that lay beneath her friend's facade. "Mary-Kate, you don't have to scream to fit in," Paige said softly, her voice steadying. "We're all here because we want to be together. You belong with us." "Yeah, we're friends," Brad added, his tone softening. "We're all scared, but we'll get through this together." Just as the tension began to ease, another scream pierced the darkness, this one shrill and panicked. It was Ashley, her voice cracking with fear. "What if we're trapped? What if no one finds us?" "Shish," Caitlin hissed, her voice urgent. "You're going to make it worse." "Worse? How could it possibly get worse?" Ashley shot back, her breath quickening. "We're in a dark store during a storm, and we can't even see each other." Okay, let's just think," Brad said, trying to regain control. "We need a plan. We can't just sit here screaming." "Right," Paige agreed, her heart racing. "Let's find a way to the front of the store. There's usually an emergency exit sign there, and maybe we can get outside." "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Mary-Kate asked, her voice trembling. "What if we run into something? Or someone? Or something?" Ashley echoed, her voice rising again. "What if there's a ghost in here?" "Seriously?" Brad scoffed, though his voice lacked its usual bravado. "There's no ghost. Just us in a storm." "Let's just move," Paige urged, her determination rising. "We can't stay here. We need to stick together." With tentative steps, the group began to navigate the aisles, their hands brushing against the shelves lined with sneakers. The smell of rubber and leather filled the air, mingling with the scent of rain that seeped through the cracks of the store. Each footfall echoed in the silence, a reminder of their vulnerability. "Wait," Caitlin said suddenly, her voice low. "Do you hear that?" A low rumble, not from the storm outside, but from somewhere deeper within the store, sent a shiver down Paige's spine. It was a sound that felt almost alive, a whisper of something lurking just beyond their reach. "What is that?" Mary-Kate whispered, her voice barely audible. "I don't know," Paige admitted, her heart racing. "But we need to keep moving. As they pressed on, the darkness seemed to close in around them, the aisles stretching endlessly like a labyrinth. The fear that had initially gripped them began to morph into something else. An unspoken tension that crackled in the air, a shared understanding that they were all feeling the weight of their own secrets. "Guys," Brad said suddenly, his voice breaking the silence. "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" Caitlin asked, her tone cautious. "I've been feeling really overwhelmed lately," he confessed, his words tumbling out in a rush. "With school, with everything. I thought I could handle it, but I can't. I feel like I'm drowning." The admission hung in the air, heavy and poignant. Paige felt a wave of sympathy wash over her. She had sensed Brad's struggle, the way he had been pushing himself to keep up appearances, but hearing him say it out loud made it all the more real. "Brad, it is okay to feel that way," Paige said gently. "We're all going through stuff. You don't have to pretend to be strong all the time." "Yeah," Caitlin added, her voice softening. "We're here for you. You don't have to go through this alone." "Thanks, guys," Brad replied, his voice thick with emotion. I didn't want to burden anyone." "You're not a burden," Mary-Kate said, her voice steady. "We're friends. That's what we're here for." As they continued to navigate the darkness, Paige felt a shift in the atmosphere. The fear that had gripped them began to loosen its hold, replaced by a sense of solidarity. They were all vulnerable, all struggling in their own ways, and in this moment of shared confessions, they found strength in each other. "Okay, my turn," Ashley said suddenly, her voice trembling. "I've been worried about my family. My dad lost his job, and my mom is stressed out all the time. I feel like I should be doing something to help, but I don't know what." The weight of Ashley's confession settled over them. Chapter 7. Sitting in silence. The storm outside had erupted into a full-blown tempest, the kind that rattled windows and sent shivers down spines. In the previous chapter, Paige and her friends had been caught in a whirlwind of laughter and sneaker envy, only to be plunged into darkness as thunder cracked like a whip, and the lights flickered out. Panic had surged through them, igniting a chorus of screams that echoed off the walls of the sneaker outlet. Now, as they huddled together on the cold, hard floor, the only sound was the relentless patter of rain against the glass and the distant rumble of thunder, a reminder of the chaos that lay just beyond their makeshift sanctuary. "Okay, let's just breathe," Paige said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. She could feel the coolness of the floor seeping through her jeans, but the chill was nothing compared to the rising tension in the air. "We're all here. We can figure this out." "Figure what out?" Caitlin's voice was small, almost lost in the shadows. "We're stuck in a dark store with no idea what's happening outside. What if we can't get out? Or what if the storm gets worse?" Ashley added, her voice quaking. "What if we're trapped here all night?" "Stop it," Brad interjected, his tone sharper than he intended. "We're not going to be trapped. It's just a storm. Let's sit and talk or something. It'll be fine." "Talk about what?" Mary-Kate asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She hugged her knees to her chest, her eyes wide in the dim light filtering through the windows. "We can't even see each other." "Let's share stories," Paige suggested, her mind racing to find a way to ease the tension. "Funny ones. Remember when we went to that awful concert last summer?" Caitlin chuckled softly, the sound a balm against the fear. "Oh God, yes. I thought I was going to die from boredom. And then Brad tried to start a mosh pit." "Hey, I was just trying to get the crowd going," Brad protested, a hint of laughter creeping into his voice. "I didn't know everyone would just stand there like zombies." "Yeah, and then you ended up spilling your drink all over that poor girl," Ashley added, her tone lightening. "She looked like she was about to cry." Hey, I bought her a new drink. Brad defended, but he was smiling now, the memory easing the tension in the air. As the stories flowed, the friends began to relax, their laughter mingling with the sound of the storm outside. They shared tales of embarrassing moments, like the time Caitlin had tripped on stage during the school play, or when Mary-Kate had accidentally sent a text meant for Paige to her crush. Each story was a thread, weaving them closer together, stitching up the frayed edges of their fear. Hours passed, though it felt like mere minutes. The storm raged on, but inside the store, a sense of camaraderie began to form, a fragile bubble of warmth amidst the cold chaos outside. Paige could feel the weight of the darkness pressing in, but the laughter of her friends pushed back against it, creating a sanctuary of shared memories and unspoken bonds. "Okay, my turn," Ashley said, her voice brightening. "Remember that time we all went to the beach and I got stung by a jellyfish?" "Oh God, yes," Caitlin exclaimed, her laughter ringing out like a bell. "You were screaming like a banshee. I thought I was going to die," Ashley said, mock seriously. "And then Brad had to pee on me to make it better." "Hey, that's a legitimate remedy," Brad protested, laughter bubbling up in his throat. "I was just trying to help." "Yeah, help me feel even more embarrassed," Ashley shot back, but her smile was infectious, and soon they were all laughing again, the sound echoing off the walls like a shield against the storm. But as the laughter faded, a silence settled over them, heavy and thick. Paige could feel the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air, the tension creeping back in like the shadows that surrounded them. She glanced around at her friends, their faces illuminated by the faint glow of her phone, and saw the worry etched into their features. "Okay, let's be real for a second," she said, her voice steady but soft. "We're all scared. I know I am. But we're in this together, right?" "Right," Brad said, but his voice lacked conviction. He shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting to the darkened corners of the store. I don't like being in the dark," Caitlin admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "It makes me feel trapped." "Me too," Mary-Kate whispered, her gaze fixed on the floor. "I hate not knowing what's happening." Paige felt a pang of empathy for her friends. They were all grappling with their own fears, and the storm outside was only amplifying that anxiety. "We'll be okay," she said, trying to inject some confidence into her words. "We just have to stick together." "Together," Brad echoed, though his voice was barely above a whisper. As they sat in silence, the storm outside continued to rage, the wind howling like a wounded animal. Paige could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating, and she knew they needed to address the elephant in the room. "What if we talk about what's really bothering us?" she suggested, her heart racing at the thought. "What do you mean?" Caitlin asked, her brow furrowing. "I mean, we've all been feeling a lot of pressure lately," Paige said, choosing her words carefully. "School, relationships, everything. Maybe it would help to just let it out." "I don't know," Ashley said, her voice hesitant. "What if it just makes things worse? Or what if it helps?" Brad countered, his tone more serious now. "We're already in a bad situation. What's the worst that could happen?" The silence that followed was heavy, each friend lost in their own thoughts. Paige could feel the weight of their fears pressing down on her, but she also felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was the moment they needed to break through the barriers that had been building between them. "Okay, I'll go first," Paige said, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her stomach. "I've been feeling really overwhelmed with school. It's like I'm drowning in assignments and expectations, and I don't know how to keep up." "I get that," Caitlin said, her voice softening. "I feel like I'm constantly trying to prove myself, and it is exhausting." "Same," Ashley chimed in. And then there's the pressure to have everything figured out. It's like everyone expects us to have our lives planned out already. Chapter 8. Chapter 8. A Night of Sleep. The storm had transformed the sneaker outlet into a sanctuary of chaos, where laughter had morphed into screams and the vibrant colors of the sneakers had faded into shadows. Paige, Caitlin, Brad, Ashley, and Mary-Kate had entered the store with excitement, but as the thunder rumbled and the lights flickered, their carefree spirits had been replaced by a palpable tension. The power outage had plunged them into darkness, and with each scream that echoed through the aisles, the weight of their fears pressed down on them like the storm outside. Now, as the hours dragged on, they found themselves huddled together on the cold, hard floor, sharing stories to stave off the panic that had threatened to consume them. As the night wore on, the storm outside continued its relentless assault, but inside the store, a different kind of energy began to take hold. The friends, exhausted from their earlier panic, slowly succumbed to the fatigue that had been creeping in. One by one, they drifted off to sleep, their bodies curling into the hard floor, seeking comfort in the presence of one another. Paige was the first to succumb, her head resting against a stack of sneakers, the smell of fresh rubber mingling with the faint scent of rain that seeped through the cracks of the building. The rhythmic patter of raindrops against the windows became a lullaby, soothing her frayed nerves. She had fought against the exhaustion, wanting to stay awake and keep the group together, but the weight of the day had taken its toll. As her eyelids grew heavy, she felt a sense of safety wash over her, a cocoon of warmth that shielded her from the chaos outside. Caitlin, lying beside her, had also surrendered to sleep, her soft breaths mingling with the sound of the storm. The tension that had gripped her moments before had melted away, replaced by the comforting presence of her friends. She had always been the caretaker of the group, the one who held everyone together, but in this moment, she allowed herself to let go, trusting that they would be okay. Brad, ever the jokester, had tried to keep the mood light, but even his humor had faltered under the weight of the storm. He lay on his back, staring up at the darkness, the flickering shadows playing tricks on his mind. As he drifted off, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that the storm was more than just a natural phenomenon. But the exhaustion pulled him under, and soon he was lost in dreams of sunlit days and laughter. Ashley and Mary-Kate, curled up together, whispered softly as they shared secrets and fears. The bond between them had deepened in the face of adversity, and as they spoke, they found solace in each other's presence. Mary-Kate's voice was a gentle murmur, a soothing balm for Ashley's anxious heart. "Do you think we'll be stuck here all night?" Ashley asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mary-Kate shrugged, her eyes heavy with sleep. "Maybe. But at least we're together, right? We'll figure it out in the morning." The reassurance in her words wrapped around Ashley like a warm blanket, and soon, the two of them succumbed to the embrace of sleep. Outside, the storm raged on, the wind howling like a wild beast. But inside the store, the friends found a fragile peace. The sound of the rain became a comforting rhythm, a reminder that they were safe, at least for now. The chaos of the earlier hours faded into the background, replaced by the soft sounds of breathing and the occasional rustle of clothing as they shifted in their sleep. In her dreams, Paige wandered through a vibrant landscape, where the colors of the sneakers danced around her like fireflies. She felt light and free, unburdened by the fears that had gripped her earlier. The laughter of her friends echoed in the distance, and she chased after it, her heart swelling with joy. But just as she reached them, the ground beneath her shifted, and she stumbled, falling into darkness. She awoke with a start, her heart racing. The store was still dark, but the storm had calmed, the rain now a gentle patter against the windows. She glanced around, her friends still asleep, their faces peaceful in the dim light. A sense of relief washed over her, but the remnants of her dream lingered, a shadow of unease that she couldn't shake. Paige shifted, trying to find a more comfortable position, but the cold floor was unforgiving. She wrapped her arms around her knees, drawing them close to her chest. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the building settling. She felt a pang of loneliness, a longing for the connection they had shared earlier, and she wished she could reach out and touch one of her friends, to feel that bond once more. As if sensing her unease, Caitlin stirred beside her, blinking sleepily. "Hey," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You okay?" Paige nodded, forcing a smile. "Just a weird dream. I think I'm still a little on edge." Caitlin sat up, brushing her hair out of her face. "Me too. But we're safe, right? We're together." Her words were a balm, soothing the remnants of fear that clung to Paige's heart. "Yeah, together," Paige echoed, but a flicker of doubt lingered in her mind. What if the storm returned? What if they were trapped here longer than they anticipated? She pushed the thoughts away, focusing instead on the warmth of Caitlin's presence. The two of them sat in silence for a moment, listening to the soft sounds of their friends sleeping. It was comforting, a reminder that they were not alone in this. But as the minutes passed, the stillness began to feel heavy, and Paige felt the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. "Caitlin," she began hesitantly, "do you ever think about what happens next? After all this?" Caitlin's brow furrowed, and she glanced at the others before turning back to Paige. "What do you mean?" "I mean, after tonight. After the storm. What if things change? What if we change?" The vulnerability in Paige's voice surprised even her, but she couldn't hold back the flood of emotions any longer. Caitlin sighed, her expression thoughtful. "I think change is inevitable. We're all growing up, and things won't always be the same. But that doesn't mean we can't hold on to what we have now." Paige nodded, but the uncertainty gnawed at her. What if we lose each other? What if we drift apart? Caitlin reached out, placing a reassuring hand on Paige's arm. "We won't. We're friends, and friends stick together. No matter what happens, we'll find a way to stay connected." The sincerity in Caitlin's voice warmed Paige's heart, but a lingering doubt remained. "What if it is not enough?" she whispered, the words escaping before she could stop them. Chapter 9. Chapter 9. Morning light. The storm had raged through the night, a cacophony of thunder and rain that had transformed the sneaker outlet into a sanctuary of fear and camaraderie. Paige and her friends had huddled together on the cold, hard floor, sharing stories and laughter that had slowly chipped away at the anxiety gripping them. As exhaustion settled in, they drifted off, lulled by the rhythmic patter of rain against the windows and the distant rumble of thunder. Now, as dawn broke, the world outside began to shift, and the remnants of their fear lingered like shadows in the corners of their minds. The soft glow of lights flickered back on, illuminating the vibrant displays of sneakers that had once been obscured by darkness. Paige stirred first, her eyelids fluttering open to the sight of bright colors and familiar shapes. The smell of fresh rubber filled the air, mingling with the faint scent of dampness that still clung to the store. Confusion washed over her as she blinked away the remnants of sleep, her heart racing with the remnants of the night's chaos. "Guys, wake up," she whispered, her voice barely above a hush, but it carried the urgency of a new day. Caitlin was the next to stir, her hair tousled and eyes squinting against the light. "What time is it?" she mumbled, stretching her arms above her head, a yawn escaping her lips. "Looks like the storm passed," Paige replied, her voice brightening with the realization. "The lights are back on." One by one, the others began to wake, rubbing their eyes and shaking off the remnants of sleep. Brad sat up, his expression a mix of confusion and relief. "Did we really just sleep through a storm?" he asked, glancing around as if expecting the chaos to return. Ashley, still curled up on the floor, groaned. I can't believe I fell asleep. I was so worried about the stove. She pushed herself up, her hair sticking out in wild angles. What if it burned down while we were here? Mary-Kate, who had been quietly observing, chuckled softly. I think your house is safe, Ash. The storm was too busy wreaking havoc outside. Paige's heart swelled with warmth as she watched her friends shake off the remnants of fear. The night had forged a bond between them, one that felt unbreakable in the morning light. Let's go check it out, she suggested, her excitement bubbling to the surface. I want to see if they have any new sneakers in stock. Of course you do, Brad teased, rolling his eyes but smiling nonetheless. You're like a kid in a candy store. As they stood and brushed off the dust from their clothes, the atmosphere shifted from one of anxiety to anticipation. The storm had left behind a world washed clean, the air crisp and fresh. Paige felt a rush of happiness as she spotted the rows of sneakers, their vibrant colors gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Look at those, she exclaimed, pointing to a pair of electric blue high tops that seemed to call her name. I need to try those on. Go for it, Caitlin encouraged, her voice light. We'll be right here. Paige dashed toward the display, her heart racing with excitement. The sneakers were even more stunning up close, the fabric smooth and inviting. She reached out, running her fingers over the laces, imagining how they would feel on her feet. Do you think they'll have my size? She wondered aloud, glancing back at her friends. Only one way to find out. Brad called back, his tone playful. As she slipped the sneakers on, the world around her faded. The fit was perfect, snug yet comfortable, and she couldn't help but smile at her reflection in the mirror. The vibrant blue seemed to spark something inside her, a sense of freedom and possibility. Okay, how do I look? She asked, spinning around to face her friends. Like you're ready to conquer the world. Caitlin cheered, clapping her hands. Or at least the sneaker aisle, Ashley added with a grin. Paige laughed, the sound ringing out like music in the store. I think I'll take them, she declared, her heart soaring. As she made her way to the checkout, the atmosphere shifted once more. The excitement of the morning began to settle into something deeper, a realization that the night had changed them all in ways they hadn't yet fully understood. Hey, can we talk about last night? Mary-Kate asked, her voice suddenly serious as they gathered around the register. Paige's heart sank slightly. She had hoped to leave the chaos of the previous night behind, but the weight of Mary-Kate's words hung in the air. What do you mean? She asked, trying to keep her tone light. I mean, we all screamed and panicked, but we also shared things, Mary-Kate continued, her gaze steady. Things we've never said before. I think we need to acknowledge that. Brad shifted uncomfortably, his hands stuffed in his pockets. Yeah, I guess it was a pretty intense night, he admitted, glancing at the floor. But we're all okay now, right? Are we? Caitlin challenged, her brow furrowing. I mean, we laughed and shared stories, but there was a lot of fear. I think we need to talk about what we felt. Paige felt a knot form in her stomach. She had shared her frustrations about feeling left out, but the thought of diving deeper into those feelings made her heart race for a different reason. I think we should just focus on the good stuff, she suggested, her voice wavering slightly. We made it through together. True, Ashley agreed, her tone softer. But maybe we should also talk about what we learned about ourselves. I know I realized I can't let my worries control me like that. Paige nodded, feeling the weight of their words. I guess I learned that I need to be more open with you guys. I've been holding back too much. Same here, Brad said, his voice low. I think we all have things we keep bottled up. Maybe we should make a pact to be more honest with each other. The idea hung in the air, heavy with possibility. Paige felt a flicker of hope, a sense that they could emerge from the storm not just as friends, but as something deeper. I like that, she said, her voice steadying. Let's do it. As they stood together, a sense of unity enveloped them, a promise to face whatever came next with honesty and courage. The morning light streamed through the windows, illuminating their faces and casting long shadows on the floor. Okay, enough of the serious stuff, Caitlin said, breaking the tension with a grin. Let's celebrate our survival with a shopping spree. Now you're talking. Brad laughed, his spirits lifted. Paige felt a rush of excitement. Chapter 10. Chapter 10. A happy ending. The soft hum of fluorescent lights flickered back to life, casting a warm glow over the sneaker outlet store. Paige blinked against the sudden brightness, her heart racing as she took in the familiar sight of colorful sneakers lining the shelves. The storm had passed, leaving behind a fresh, earthy scent that wafted in through the open doors, mingling with the lingering smell of rubber and fabric. She could hardly believe they had spent the night huddled together on the cold floor, sharing fears and laughter, but now, with the chaos behind them, a sense of exhilaration surged within her. Look at these! Paige exclaimed, her voice bubbling with excitement as she darted toward a pair of vibrant, electric blue sneakers that seemed to glow under the lights. I need these in my life. Her friends, still shaking off the remnants of their shared panic, gathered around her, their laughter echoing through the store. Caitlin, her hair tousled and eyes bright, nudged Brad playfully. You know, I think we should have a scream off every time there's a storm. It really brought us together. Brad chuckled, shaking his head. I don't know about that. I'd rather not scream my lungs out again. I think I'm still hoarse from all the yelling. Mary Kate, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up, her voice laced with a hint of mischief. Well, if we're going to scream, at least we should do it in style. Paige, you should definitely get those sneakers. They scream, look at me. Single quote. Paige grinned, her heart swelling with affection for her friends. You're right. I'm getting them. And I think I'll take these neon green ones too. She pointed to another pair, her enthusiasm infectious. As she gathered her choices, Ashley, who had been rifling through a nearby rack, turned to them, a playful smirk on her face. You know, I think we should all get matching sneakers. It'll be our Survivor badge from last night. Matching sneakers. Brad raised an eyebrow, feigning seriousness. What are we, a marching band? More like a squad of sneaker warriors. Caitlin chimed in, striking a pose that made them all burst into laughter again. The atmosphere was electric, a stark contrast to the fear that had gripped them just hours before. They were no longer just a group of friends. They were a team, bonded by shared experiences and the thrill of survival. Paige felt a warmth spread through her chest, a sense of belonging that she had longed for. As they made their way to the checkout, Paige couldn't help but glance at the sneakers one last time. The vibrant colors seemed to dance in the light, and she felt a rush of gratitude for the night that had brought them all closer. You know, I think I'll wear these every time there's a storm, she joked, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Just don't scream again, Brad teased, nudging her shoulder. I don't think my heart can take it. Paige rolled her eyes playfully, but deep down, she knew that the night had changed something within her. It had stripped away the layers of uncertainty and fear, revealing a deeper connection with her friends. As they stepped outside, the sun peeked through the clouds, casting a golden hue over the parking lot. The air was fresh, and the world felt renewed. Let's take a picture, Caitlin suggested, pulling out her phone. We need to document this moment. They gathered together, arms slung around each other's shoulders, laughter spilling into the air as Caitlin snapped a series of photos. Paige felt a sense of joy wash over her, a feeling that had eluded her for so long. She was surrounded by people who cared, who understood her quirks and fears, and who were willing to stand by her side through the storms of life. Literal and metaphorical. Okay, one more, Caitlin said, her voice bubbling with excitement. This time, let's do a silly face. They all complied, contorting their features into ridiculous expressions, and the camera clicked. The moment felt perfect, encapsulating the joy and relief that had blossomed from the chaos of the previous night. As they finished taking pictures, Paige felt a sudden pang of realization. What about the sneakers we left behind? She asked, her brow furrowing. What if someone else buys them? Don't worry, Brad said, waving his hand dismissively. We'll come back for them. Besides, I think we've had enough excitement for one night. Paige nodded, but a small part of her felt uneasy. The sneakers had become a symbol of their adventure, a tangible reminder of their bond. She wanted to hold on to that feeling, to keep it close as they moved forward. Let's go get some food, Ashley suggested, her stomach rumbling audibly. I don't know about you guys, but I'm starving. Food sounds perfect, Caitlin agreed, her eyes lighting up. I could go for some pizza right now. As they walked toward the parking lot, the sun fully emerged from behind the clouds, bathing everything in a warm glow. The world felt alive, vibrant, and full of possibilities. Paige felt a sense of hope swell within her, a feeling that perhaps this was the beginning of something new. Hey, can I talk to you guys about something? Mary Kate's voice broke through the chatter, her expression suddenly serious. The group paused, exchanging glances. What's up? Brad asked, concern etching his features. Mary Kate took a deep breath, her hands fidgeting at her sides. I know last night was intense, and we all shared a lot of personal stuff. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate you all. I've always felt like the odd one out, but last night made me realize how much I need you guys in my life. Paige's heart swelled at Mary Kate's words. You're not odd, Mary Kate. You're one of us, she reassured her, stepping closer. We all have our quirks, and that's what makes us a great group. Yeah, we're all a little weird, Caitlin added with a grin. And that's what makes us awesome. Mary Kate smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Thank you, guys. I just wanted to say that I'm really grateful for our friendship. The moment hung in the air, a fragile yet powerful acknowledgement of their bond. Paige felt a rush of warmth, a sense of belonging that enveloped her like a comforting blanket. They were more than just friends. They were a family forged through laughter, fear, and shared experiences. As they continued toward the parking lot, the conversation shifted back to lighter topics, but Paige couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted within her. The storm had brought them together, but it was the moments of vulnerability that had solidified their connection.